Hey associates, this video in your self-paced lab on our tools goes through Google Docs with some of the tools to be aware of that you'll need for this class. Now, overall, Docs is missing key features and tools that you will need for several projects. And so obviously it is up to you, you're in charge of your life, but I do not recommend Google Docs for a lot of the stuff that we're doing just because it is really not built. It's not kind of intended for some of the types of projects that we would be using. And Microsoft Word, specifically the desktop version, does have kind of every tool that you'll need to do all of the projects. So just be aware of that, that I'm going to walk through what you are able to do and can't do in Docs so you can make that choice for yourself. All right, so the first tool is going to be your citation manager that I want you to definitely use, save a lot of time and energy. So anytime you find a source, even if you're not totally sure you're going to use it, if you think maybe, possibly you might use it, go into Tools, Citations, and open up the Citation Manager. I have one already loaded in here. Notice from the drop down, you only have MLA APA Chicago. APA is what you will use in this class, or IEEE. I recommend IEEE, just get used to it if you're in engineering, computer science, electronics, but Google Docs doesn't support IEEE, so you can use APA. Now, whenever you again find a source, you want to hit Add Citation. One cool thing about Google Docs, especially if you have books or some websites, but if you found a book, you can, okay, say where'd you get it, and then it actually asks about the ISBN. So I, am on our Kramer Family Library, right? And I found this book, and let's say I'm going to cite that. Open it up to its, its page where I can read it, hop down to its info, and grab that ISBN number. When I go back over to Google, I can paste the ISBN of any book that I found, search, and it pulls all that information. So it is kind of nice because it saves, and then it asks you to verify, and you can update any of this content and then add it. And so you can do that with some websites as well. Not everything has that shortcut, so you'll still have to type in some information, but it just makes it really easy. Tells you exactly recommended fields, what you should be typing in. When you are then, writing your content, oops, writing some content, and you realize you need to cite, you can click from your citation manager, hit the in-text citation, right, and it adds it right in there for you. And then I could cite this one, cite, boom. Now here it is giving me a warning that because this is a book, I should have the page numbers. Right? This one is just an article, so it's like more reasonable, but a book, it's like, okay, well, where did you get it from? Just remember the point of citations is to also give your readers the ability to go find out more about that information, go find that source and read it for themselves. And so that's where it is kind of being grumpy. So let's just like say I got it on, page 330, right? You would update it based on your notes to be, accurate for you. The other thing with the citation manager, why to use it when you have finished all of your citations, hit references, and it puts all of that in there. It doesn't really track if you've cited things or not, so it will always give you that warning to remove anything that you end up not using. But that's why I strongly recommend, especially for your big project at the end, but for any of them, if you use external information, including, you need to cite because of images or anything like that, just drop it in your citation manager right when you're on that site and can get all of that information easily, because it's so easy to just delete a source that you don't want later, compared to, having to do it all and go back and find them at the beginning. So citations, key tool. Another key tool that you will need to be using and sort of inserting throughout a lot of your documents is going to be your table of contents. So go to the Insert tab and just drop all the way down to our table of contents. and it does do an automatic one. Notice that we don't have anything set up right now because we are missing styles. So we will hop into how to set up our styles next. So I have some headings kind of pre-made here, but they aren't tagged in any way. So you want our, right, we want our headings to stand out. That's kind of our contrast, make it easy to skip, scan, skim. But you don't want to just be going in and being like, oh, let me update it all here, and then I'll hit the paintbrush. And no, two reasons to not do that. One, that's so much time, like, ugh, don't do that. But two, it does not actually tag it as a style, which is important for your table of contents as well as screen readers and such. So instead, what you are going to do is here they have a drop down for what type of text it is. And so you will tag your heading ones as a heading one, heading one. You'll tag any heading twos, right? So a subheading, a subtopic. So under my research methods and my primary research as a subheading, my framework or whatever, and then you're heading one. And so they have quite a few options, not quite as many as like Word, but all the key ones that you would need for a project. Then once you have your headings actually tagged, a few cool things are enabled. One, this document outline. Now we can easily jump right to that section. So you can imagine when you are actually working on, a 5, 10, 20 page document, instead of like scrolling all the way to like different sections, it's going to be a lot nicer to just jump right to that area instead. The other nice thing and reason that we have to do these tags is for our table of contents. Now, if we refresh, boom, the beginning of your document, you have your table of contents with all the right page numbers already set up and formatted for you. So you don't have to spend, honestly, a lot of time trying to make it on your own, which will probably also have like mistakes and just not look as good, honestly. And so use those tools. Now, we don't have kind of a really big universal like design type of tab. And Google Docs is just like not really made to get too much into like custom designs. It's more of just like a straightforward platform. And so if you want to make any adjustments to what your headings look like, so it isn't, quite so default like Google Docs, you will just have to like click on the heading and then make your changes. So maybe you want, I don't know, your headings could be in a little bit different font. Maybe you want your heading ones to all be like italics or something, or if you wanted them to be like bold, whatever you want to do, you make those changes with your regular formatting tab up here. And then when we go back over to our main headings, you can update heading one to match. And then notice everything that's been tagged with heading one updated to fit. And let's say this doesn't stand out very well. So I maybe italics it and bold it, heading twos, and update heading twos to match. So that's how you are going to save a lot of time and make sure everything gets consistent. Don't use the paintbrush tool. That's like some basic, like you don't have time for that and you're better than that. It has its place, but not here. Instead, you need to be using your styles and making those changes once to then apply to a whole document. And something this short, not a big deal. When you are working with a 20-page grant, it's going to be a lot more annoying to update every single one individually. Um, yeah, cool. So that is going to be kind of our styles. There really isn't that much more in terms of the design that's available in Google Docs. And so that's kind of just like the key thing. You don't have as much customization options on that front or in that area. You will need to, next you will need to insert a lot of graphics, and drawings into your technical writing content, kind of across the board. So here we just go to our insert tab. So we have images, and of course it's connected to things like your Google Photos, your Google Drive, or you can upload from your computer, which is, a pretty nice kind of efficient way to get some things done. We have tables. So if you need to insert a table, you just kind of drag out however much that you need, and then boom, your table is kind of there. Over here we have our table properties, and this is where you can make some of the adjustments to what your table looks like. Looking at its alignment, some of its sort of color stuff. You do have to be a little bit more, they don't have as many kind of like pre-formatted options for your table as some other programs, and so you'll just have to, do a little bit more on that front. Like for example, right, if this was, oops, this is some sort of table with last name, first name, and like, I don't know, rank or position or something. I would just need to kind of go through and then sort of manually update some of this stuff, like maybe create a border, this kind of shell, the styles, um, and yeah, and just kind of go through all of that. So not a big deal, just like a tiny bit more like work itself, but overall pretty easy stuff. Other than tables, which you should definitely be using a lot, just nature of our content, we love a table. You also do have the ability to insert charts, which kind of pulls from a sheet. So you have all of our basic chart types, which will be fine for the type of data and work for this class. So you can just insert your bar chart and right, it drops it in right here. In order to update the content, you will have to open the linked chart, which is making basically like a Google Sheets for it. And then from here is where you can, update the titles of your stuff, right? Thing two. See, it's like updating here. Here's where you will, change what content, right? The numbers, the data, all of that kind of stuff kind of shows up there. This is also where you can change some of like the formatting if you wanted to adjust, the themes of your chart. Notice how it updates automatically over there. It's not necessarily linked to any color scheme in your Google Docs, so just make sure that you are staying, consistent while thinking about, all of the contrast. So once that's done, you can go back to your sheets, but notice it isn't automatically updated. So you'll just have to hit update, and now all the changes that you made in your linked kind of chart over here will show up on this side. All right, the last type of graphic that's important to be inserting for your projects is going to be various drawings and whatnot. And so you will actually click on this drawing tab. I recommend instead of just going straight images, go to this drawing tab, hit new, and it opens up this little canvas. And this is super great, especially for images, because we don't want to just drop a bunch of images necessarily in our documents. We want to make sure it has the labels and arrows and annotations, and we're showing the readers what is happening in that document and labeling everything. So we can select an image, and we can like just upload or go to things like Google Photos, and it's kind of linked over. So there's, all my like class photos and things that you've seen before. And so, if I select one of those and hit insert, right, then it kind of puts it in here for us. And then we have the ability to do things like shapes, arrows, different, call outs, which are helpful for a label. So I could draw it right on here and even drag right where the tail goes and type into it, team green. And then we can even, right, get additional ones, right, label this side, right, the blacks. Right? And kind of update some of those things. We can also do other shapes, like maybe you want to really highlight, something big. So it's, maybe some sort of, here's our formatting. You could do transparent, make the border, really thick. So border weight, so it's easy to kind of see. And then maybe we even do a text box just to have like a general label. And that could be, the three-headed dragon sigil, sigil, adapted for each team. It does have some spell check for you. It's like, oh, I literally can't read this because it's black on black. that's going to be a problem, right? We can't see it. So it'll go into my formatting options and do things like change the fill color. So now we can see it. And I can also insert, lines and arrows, which can be really, helpful, right? And so I can drag and connect the edge of this line from this box into one of the anchor points in the circle, which, oh my God, just gives us kind of that ability. Now, if I move this, it just stays connected, which can be a little bit helpful as well. We are able to change all the formatting and things from our arrows and our lines, so that way, and your goal is to make sure it stands out and people can't see it. When you're done doing all of these actions on your drawing, you just hit save and close, and then it inserts it actually as one kind of image that scales and resizes with itself, which is definitely a really handy kind of tool compared to if you just inserted the image and then did all of that from these tools instead. Now, with technical graphics, you need to have captions, and there's no caption tool for Google Docs, unfortunately. Yeah, it's just not something that is created. So you will have to either go in and sort of insert your own series of things like text boxes. So that way you can, have the captions and label, and then you'll have to build your own list of figures, or else you're going to have to go to add-ons, get add-ons, and search for, caption tools, which there absolutely are a bunch of them. They just notice are all like external. Google itself hasn't made that kind of integration. So obviously, quality varies, and just be aware of whatever it is that you might be adding on and giving access to your documents is the only way to kind of get around that, or yeah, make your own captions using a lot of text boxes for kind of the work. Otherwise, you still have special characters, you have equations, you have a lot of the kind of key stuff, just not that element. Now, often in technical writing, you might see, certain pages are landscape and others are portrait. And so you can see I have, right, my big table here is in landscape and this little table is in landscape, but then it, right, switches back into portrait mode. And so how we accomplish that and how we do that is through something called a section break. So we'll basically go to the page. So we want, right, this table to be landscape. And we don't want the whole document landscape because one, people don't expect that in formal documents, and two, it makes the reading harder because it's too long of a line length, and it's just people are gonna be like, why did you do this? Do you hate us? So instead, we're gonna go over to our insert tab again, and go down to breaks. Now, page break is a different thing. It will not set it up the way you need. Instead, you have to do a section break. Sections allow us to individually adjust formatting options, so layout and page numbers. Page breaks just bump the content to the next page kind of automatically. So we can do a continuous section break. Say, okay, staying on this page is one section. But then after our chart, we can go back in and page break. This time I'm going to do a section break to the next page, just bumping all this content down onto its own page. So now this is one section. So from here, once you set up your sections, is where we can go into some of our different layout kind of tool. So we'll go into the Format tab, and this is where we see our page orientation. So hit that, and you'll see an option for the whole document or the different sections. And so you want to do this section where your cursor is on, tell it to be landscape, and now boom, just this one page, which don't think of it as a page because you can have multiple pages in a single section. Instead, it's wherever you did your section start and your section end follows that rule. The same thing applies if we go into our format and our page numbers. And so you can apply different types of page numbers to the different types of sections. So you can do a whole document, or you can do things like just section 2. Now notice that we don't really have options to change things to like Roman numerals the way that you usually see in formal reports. Because Google Docs just doesn't have that. I don't know. It's just like not really an option, but you are able to, kind of adjust and update some of that kind of stuff here. From the options, we can hop back into it, and yeah, notice like you can only change where the pages start, but not necessarily the format of it. So if you want to have the Roman numerals to be extra, formal and fancy and what people expect, this is why I tell you not to use Google Docs, honestly. Uh, but yeah, that's kind of a key thing. Use sections, that way you can format your different pieces, kind of differently and have a lot of those layout abilities and options. All right, so the last thing inside of, oh yeah, notice how the page number updates. So the last thing inside of Google Docs is just when you're done, how to share the document. So do not just share a doc file with me. I don't want that in Canvas and having to mess with that. So instead, a few things as you're getting ready to, finish, proof your work. First, make sure that you proofread your document. So that way you get your grammar, spelling, and any of these things, straightened out and fixed. Then you can also in tools go to accessibility, and it will kind of like help you check some of those elements and just run through some of those kind of aspects that could be really helpful. We will get way more into what a lot of these like accessibility things do when we get into that section. And Google Docs accessibility is actually a lot less helpful in us as creators making accessible documents. It's much more helpful if you need these accessibility elements. And so checking for accessibility is a little bit different. It takes a little bit more work in Google Docs as well. But when you are all done, you'll go File, and so then you will download and go ahead and download a PDF. If anything goes wrong with your downloaded PDF, as it's actually converting your documents and your files into it, sometimes things just get a little bit like messed up. And so if that happens to you, especially with how much formatting we tend to do, or maybe like custom fonts, that kind of stuff, instead you can print. And what you'll do is instead of selecting a printer, you'll save as a PDF. And what it's doing is instead of actually converting your Google Doc into a PDF file, it is essentially making a PDF of the print preview. So we lose any interactions like hyperlinks, that kind of stuff, if you had any, aren't going to work. Usually that is fine for a lot of the types of reports and documents you're making. We don't necessarily expect that much interactivity. And if we did want interactive features, we would use like a different medium to share than a PDF anyway. But do be aware, if for some reason you need links to still work, this print to PDF is not going to be a good option. But for this class, if again you notice like things are jumping around or your labels on photos are messed up or anything weird like that, you can use the print to PDF, and it kind of whatever you see here is basically what gets turned into your PDF rather than going through kind of an actual sort of conversion process. But otherwise, that is all of the kind of tools in Google Docs. This tutorial is obviously a lot shorter because, well, often the answer is Google Docs just doesn't really support that kind of work. I use Docs for a lot of things. It has absolutely its use cases. Obviously, I give you a lot of Google Docs because it is a really nice, when I share, I can just publish to the web and it gets treated more like a link. We do have a lot of good stuff there. And if I don't need a lot of heavy editing, it works well. But I do still recommend using Microsoft Word for a lot of the stuff in this class, and just to create some more advanced, or like not even advanced, but just like kind of the stuff we need for more professional technical writing. Google Docs is just not gonna necessarily always be the best tool because it just isn't really made for that a little bit heavier type of writing. All right, thanks associates. Continue with your lab.